Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today I'm going to be reviving a series that I started quite a while ago, and this series is the map review series. So one of the main reasons I'm going to be reviving the series is before when I started it I didn't have much time. I was working on some other series and my priorities were a little different. Now that stuff has calmed down a little bit, I have a lot more time and therefore I will be able to keep up with this series and put a little more effort into it. So some things are going to be changing from when I started it before. Our grading criteria has changed slightly. You guys can see it there on the screen. And besides that, it's going to be pretty much the same. So anyway, let's get into reviewing this map. So the map I'm going to be reviewing for you guys today is called 1918, and it's by SIUDINHO, and that's at least how I think you're supposed to say it. So the reason we picked this map to review is because we were just scrolling through the maps on Steam, and this one was pretty highly rated. It had like a 4 out of 5 stars and was pretty recent as well. So we decided this one would be an interesting one to do. It definitely looks interesting enough and it plays interesting enough. And so today we're going to be focusing on this map. So we're going to start off by going over some of the strengths of the map first, and there were definitely quite a few. So the first strength of the map is the amount of detail it includes. This map is probably one of the better detailed maps I've ever seen on Steam. There's a high amount of detail in certain places. For example, this sort of settlement right here, there's just a lot of different detail, a lot of items been put into this, and a lot of work has been done on specific areas of this map. And overall, it really gives this map a good feel to it. There's a lot of quality that went into this map, and that's definitely a good thing to have. Besides detail, which isn't the only thing that you have to judge a map on, this map also has a really good feel to it. Sort of the stylization and the era that this map was supposed to be in fit really well with the theme and how the author of the map actually implemented it. It's got a nice woodsy feel. It takes advantage of the new trees, and there's a lot of nature to it, but also the buildings and structures that are included in the map also sort of fit the times and are kind of old-fashioned the way they're laid out and stuff. And so that really helps the feel of the map. It's kind of immersive in that way. You definitely feel like you're in a war wasteland and some sort of apocalyptic area like that. Another really good feature of this map has to be the landscape and the ambience and the lighting. So as you guys can already tell, it's sort of meant to be a foggy map. If I scroll through the timeline here, it stays foggy all day long, but that isn't something that takes away from the map. If anything else, it really puts the map into character because it really helps with the immersion and it keeps you from feeling like you're changing locations too often. So for example, it's not going to change from like super sunny all of a sudden into like a super foggy and gloomy area. And as I said before, the landscaping was done very well in this map. As you guys can see, these mountains are very well detailed. It may be a little hard to tell when you're actually in map because of, the trees and stuff that get in the way, but there's been a lot of work that was put into this landscape, and it ended up looking very realistic, and there's just really a lot of detail that was put into this. Also with the lighting, there's just enough lighting to where there's a lot of beautiful times of day during this map. For example, the morning is very beautiful, and the late evening, you got those amazing sun rays coming through the clouds, and just a nice sort of pink sunset. Those sort of things really help the beauty of the map and just make it look really nice. So there are a few more things that I want to mention that were really strong about this map. First of all, I'm going to mention it briefly, but this map does include about 3 Easter eggs. Now, of course, I'm not going to give them away to you guys. That's the whole point of an Easter egg. But I do want to give the author props for including these. That's always one thing that I always like to see in a map. Just some creativity, some fun stuff sort of added as, some secret areas that you can explore. Also, one of the last things I'm going to mention is that this map did keep up to date with the updates of Unturned. It uses a lot of the new objects and items, and it takes advantage of a lot of the new features, including the new water volumes. So these blue squares right here are actually made in the dev kit, and this allows the author to make a water landmass above the actual water level, which is much lower, and just small uses of the new features really helps make this map a lot more valuable because those features were put in place to improve map making. Alright, so those are the main features of the map I really wanted to touch on. There's a lot of other strengths to this map, but in order for you to experience them, you're just going to have to play the map yourself. So let's move on to the weaknesses of the map. Now, before I go into this, I want to add a disclaimer here. I'm not trying to harp on this map. This map definitely did have some downfalls and some poorer sides to it, but I'm mentioning these to help the author, potentially improve his map making abilities and potentially fix the map. This is the version 3 of the map, and there's plenty of time to go into this map and potentially fix some of the issues I may mention. And of course, that's up to the author to decide. But I'm hoping to help the author out by critiquing his map in a pretty critical way. So let us get into some of the weaknesses this map had. So one of the main weaknesses this map had is that some of the areas of the map were not detailed at all. So as we were playing through it, there was just some houses that had nothing in them, and it was actually pretty crazy because there's quite a contrast between the areas that the author did detail and the areas he didn't, because some of them, were fantastically detailed. Some of the buildings were on point with the design and the detail, and yet others were just untouched. And some of the areas he tried to block off to sort of hide the fact that he didn't put detail into them, and he didn't really block them off well enough, so you could just tell that some of the detail was really missing from this map, and it really decreased the quality of some of these areas. For example, this warehouse is completely empty, whereas some of the other buildings are like perfectly decorated and detailed. So it's really kind of confusing why the map wasn't completely detailed. It really makes the map feel like it wasn't finished. Another downfall of the map is that it is very difficult for survival. Now, this map was advertised as being a survival map, and that's something we're going to take into account. Obviously, if it's an arena map, we're not going to treat it like we are going to be treating a survival map. An arena map is going to be held to different standards than just a normal survival. And in terms of difficulty, this one was way over the top. So this map does include some dead zones. They're highly advertised, and I appreciate the fact that he added some of that higher level content, but one of the issues with it is that there is a initial spawn inside the dead zone. And you may not think that's too hard. You may think you might be able to run out of it. Well, as we found out, the spawn was very, very annoying. There's not very many spawns, so the chance of you actually spawning in a dead zone is very high. And as a first impression of a user spawning into a dead zone and dying within the first few minutes because of radiation poisoning, it's kind of disheartening. And it's very hard and difficult, and it might make new players actually decide not to play the map. It is that bad. And the author did put some gas mask spawns and some filter spawns, I think, nearby the spawn, but not knowing they're there and initially spawning in, you're not necessarily going to be able to find them, and you'll pretty much die over and over to that spawn anytime you spawn in there. Besides the spawn location, that was probably one of the most disheartening things about this map. There's also a lack of items and survivability materials. So, some of the item spawns, there definitely are item spawns in this map, and thank goodness, because those are necessary for survival, but there just is a lack of item spawns, and there's a lack of diversity in the item spawns. Something that Nene and I, when we were testing it, something we found out was that there's a very big lack of tools, and they're very sparsely spread out through the map. I think it took me about 10 minutes to find my first melee weapon in the entire map, and those are one of the things that you should find pretty commonly. I mean, a melee weapon is not overpowered. It's definitely necessary for survival. It's silent, and it's a good way to kill zombies, and without one, it's very hard to survive, because you just get killed by zombies over and over. And speaking of which, you can only craft specific things with specific tools. So they're definitely necessary to survive properly, and I found that there's a big lack of tools, items, clothing spawns, food spawns, pretty much everything you could think of. Also relating to item spawns and resources, there was also a lack of natural resources in this map. I think if you go through the woods, you might expect to see some deer spawns, maybe some pig and some cow. I think the most I saw was a single cow spawn spread out through the entire map, and it's good that he included a cow spawn. I did use the meat to actually cook some stuff, but it would be really helpful to see maybe an increased number of deer spawns and the like throughout the map. He could also use that as an opportunity to spawn some bears, moose, and coyotes, something that could be potentially dangerous, because a large part of this map is nature. And, that's not necessarily a downfall of the map. A lot of maps do really well with having a good natural area in them. But if he's going to have some good natural areas, he's going to need to include the natural resources to survive. And those also include berry spawns, and iron resource nodes where you can actually mine and get some metal from those. Now I do want to point out he did include an area with berry spawns. I'm not going to give that away because it's a very valuable area of the map, but it was very localized and there was only one single location that included those berries. So, it would have been nice to see maybe a few berry bushes spread out through the forest just so that the users could use them to maybe lower the radiation levels if they perhaps spawn in the dead zone. Also, still sort of on the topic of resources and item spawns, one thing that Nene and I were running into as we were trying to survive on this map is that, but obviously there's a lack of resources in general, but sort of counting off to that is there was not really enough materials, even if you scoured the entire map, to support more than one person. I think you could support one person on this map pretty solidly. It would take a while to get started. You'd maybe need some farming happening, but there definitely are enough items to support one person, with a very frugal lifestyle. But, having more than one is pretty much not possible in this map without more item spawns. So that's also going to take away from the multiplayer ability of this map. It's going to be very hard to do that, with more than one person. And also, this may have been because they didn't fit with the style of the map, but there was a large lack of vehicles and transportation throughout the map. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That may have been an intentional sort of thing done by the author, but that's something to keep in mind. This is a pretty large map. It's a normal size, and traversing the map, by foot is pretty tedious, especially when you need to move across it to get the items you need to survive. So anyway, that pretty much concludes the criticism part of this map review. Hopefully, as the author or other users, please don't take it too harshly. I'm doing this for the purpose of helping the author improve his style and his map making. I do think this map was very, very good. Some places of it were very well done, and it definitely feels like a complete map. It just has some areas that are lacking. So overall, this map was very well done. It's understandable why this got such a high rating on the Steam store. 4 out of 5 stars is nothing to gawk at. It definitely deserves its rating. It just needs some more help. And overall, the weaknesses kind of overrode the strengths a bit, and overall we had to rate this 73% out of 100%. And if you guys want to see the details, I'll put them up right here, and that sort of just goes over, what we graded and why. And hopefully that'll make sense to you guys watching this video. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for this map review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later. Alright guys, so I did want to mention this. This is sort of an afterword for the video, but if you guys do want to have your map reviewed, or somebody that's making a map and maybe they want to have it reviewed, I do want to mention that we are open to that. We are definitely looking forward to doing subscriber submitted maps. There are just a few criteria I want to make sure I get across to you guys. First of all, we don't want to be reviewing maps that are not completed, and this is for a few reasons. First of all, it looks really bad for the map maker if you give us a map that's not completed, because we're going to be judging it quite hard, and we're going to be doing this so that you guys can improve your map making style. So we want to see a completed product, something that'll truly represent your skills as a map maker. Also, something to keep in mind is that this map will need to be publicly available, and that is for the purpose of when we do these map reviews, we're not doing this for us, we're doing this for you guys. We want to be able to review a map, give it props, give it some publicity, and then have subscribers who watch this video go out and find your map. So we're going to need it to be public. That could mean that you need to upload it to the Steam workshop, or there's another alternative, which is unturnedplanet.com. That's another good third-party sort of place to put up your maps. Either way though is fine, and hopefully we'll hear from you guys about some maps that you might want us to review in the future.